Hello, today we are going to learn about history of social work in Europe and America. Social work has become a global profession with degrees in social work in all the universities and government and non-government sectors, employing them for their special knowledge and special skills. This is a global profession which has a presence across the globe, and there are many international bodies of social work. These bodies have raised the global profile of the profession by contributing their expertise to international organizations like UN, WHO, etc. Today, they are employing social workers because of their special knowledge and special skills. There is a special demand for social workers in such international bodies. The growth of the profession is uneven, where it has become a full profession in some countries while searching for recognition in some other countries. This difference is due to the ideological state of the country coupled with their respective historical development. So, on one side we see that in some countries there is a full-fledged system of regulation of the social workers. There is a council, and then there is a very big associations and very big groups and multiple associations. But on other side we see that the profession is even learning to carve a niche for itself. So, where this differences is resting is on the ideological state of the country, and at the same time what their historical development has been, what kind of a governance is happening over there. So, let us have a look at historical evolution of social work in Europe. In the pre-industrial Europe, like all pre-industrial societies, even in India, even in Asian societies, when the society was pre-industrial, social welfare was the responsibility of the church, the family and the village community. So, if there was any issue with the widow woman, with the orphan child or elderly, they were taken care of within the family, within the village community, and if there was some kind of a support needed, church was looked up to. But in the times, industrialization and urbanization changed the social milieu. With industrialization, industries were set up and the labor was required from the villages. People started migrating from rural areas to urban areas and led to the development of urban colonies. So, this actually changed the social milieu, and this also changed and broke the traditional system of welfare which was given by the family, by the village community and by the church. So, there was nothing to take care of the people who were migrating to the urban areas in the search of jobs or working in the factories. So, this actually kept them in a very bad situation. Changes in social milieu. Social political changes including French Revolution and Russian Revolution along with American independence. Rise of social movement, democracy, universal adult franchise, declining authority of church and village authorities. And then there were economic changes. The emergence of industrial capitalism, unionism, women and children in workplace coupled with periodic economic crisis. So, these economic changes led to industrial capitalism, which was more focused on profits rather than any facility to the labor. This resulted in unionism also. So, these changes resulted in increased government spending on welfare as entitlement of citizens, because the employers shirked from his responsibility on spending on the labor. 1980s, these times were marked by neoliberalism. As we understand by neoliberalism, this is gradually how welfare becomes a shared activity between the government and the private players. Coupled with globalization, this resulted in increasing financial pressure on the government. It changed the perspective of social welfare and changed the role of social work. Because when gradually the welfare shifted from the traditional role of family, community and church, gradually the government had to take over the role of welfare. and that is how it changed the face of social work also. Now, development of social work in United Kingdom. UK was the prominent power influencing USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and South Africa for almost 2 centuries. So, UK made all these countries its colonies and was extracting resources from these countries. Undivided India, including Bangladesh and Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Malaysia and a number of African countries were colonies of UK. So, church and state had varied opinion on charity. So, on one side, while church promoted charity, it encouraged charity, state restricted it, and state stated that no charity needs to be given because this leads to the prevalence of beggary. So, UK enacted few legislations to help the poor. Magna Carta in 2015 laid the foundation of human rights, though only for the rich and elite. In 1601, Elizabethan Poor Law was there, which authorized raising of taxes to facilitate the government provide services to poor, needy and destitutes. So, the responsibility of taking care of the poor shifted from the traditional sources to the government. This act distinguished between able-bodied poor, impotent poor and dependent children. And a house of correction was also set up for able-bodied poor. Some important legislations. 1662, Law of Settlement appointed Justice of Peace, who ensured that any newcomer who is likely to become a pauper and hence a public charge in future needs to be returned. Only when this pauper was in a position to pay to the Justice of Peace certain amount as a security that he was allowed to stay. In 1696, Workhouse Act, this instructed the inmates, because they were able-bodied inmates, it instructed the inmates to engage in spinning, knitting or weaving. However, there was no training given to them, there was no expertise in them. So, this led to no economic success because the products that they were making in those workhouses, it was not appealing to the masses and they could not sell it. So, there was no economic success due to lack of training. In 1761, Hanway, a researcher, he went to these workhouses and exposed the pathetic condition of these workhouses. He showed that how children, women, everybody is together in this workhouses, and this become a very, very bad situation for children to develop into a healthy human being. So, this resulted in children under 6 years of age to be sent for a foster care. They were not being sent to their parents' house because they were poor. Gilbert Act 1978 appointed guardians of the poor, and then came Speenham Land Act of 1795. Here the relief was based on the cost of bread, and it was provided in the family to support or supplement low wages. So, the relief was not in terms of any money, but it was in terms of bread. But this had unintended negative effects because people gradually reduced their work and they gradually started shifting to this support. Thomas Chalmers, after a thorough research and experiment with poor relief, suggested that the relief must be carefully administered after investigation of each case of poor relief. And this is something called social investigation report. He proposed self-maintenance followed by help from relatives, family, friends, then donation from wealthy citizens, and then finally ask for help of the congregation. So, we can see that it is going back to the roots. He was here suggesting the old traditional way of giving the welfare. But since he supported this investigation of each case of poor relief, it laid foundation to the individual approach to social work that today we call casework. Factory Act 1833 and Factory Amendment Act 1847 regulate the working condition of children and women in factories. It did not stop children from working in factories, but it regulated their working conditions. Poor law was amended in 1843. So, it broke the divisions into deserving poor, worthy of receiving support, and B, undeserving poor who were able-bodied, single mothers and prostitutes. These undeserving poor had to turn to workhouses since there was no relief outside of these institutions. So, this law basically judged the poor whether they are deserving of the welfare or whether they are undeserving of the welfare. If they were able-bodied, if they were single mothers or prostitutes, they were sent to workhouses. Then in 1834, the Beveridge Report suggested an elaborate system of welfare to address the problem of want, disease, ignorance, squalor and idleness. It suggested to abolish Speenham Land Act, abolish outdoor relief to everyone except for old, invalid, widows with young children, to make poor relief less desirable, and to establish a central board of control to be appointed by the king. So, this basically what it did was, it restricted the relief to only the ones as explained as the deserving ones, and it suggested that one needs to establish a central board of control which will be under the king. So, Edwin Chadwick became the pioneer of health and hygiene in prisons. He had visited many prisons and he had seen the pathetic condition of the prisoners, and many decades after Edwin Chadwick, the government developed the vision of providing decent aid to poor, sound public health protection, adequate housing, recreation, public schools for the entire population. Then Thatcher's conservative government brought major changes in the welfare, which led to changes in social work profession also, since the state intended to a departure in benefits. Role of NGOs. The YMCA and YWCA were the major organizations. The settlement house movement and charity organization movement played a major role in evolution of modern social work. Charity organization societies aimed towards organizing charities in a more systematic way. Settlement house movements demanded provision of better services for the poor from the government, and social work education is now part of the university system. The British Association of Social Workers regulates the social work profession and practice, and it has its code of ethics. Second World War created such conditions that required social workers to deal with the consequences of the war. In 1974, a document, Minimum Educational Requirement, was made for the establishment of National Council of Social Welfare. By 1975, there were 11 schools which had increased to 22 in 2004. Now, let us have a look at history of social work in America. One should be mindful of the fact that America once was a colony of UK. So, World War II significantly weakened Britain, contributing to its decline as a global power. This war drained Britain's resources, depleted its military strength and damaged its economic stability. And this world war resulted in the rising power of America and dominated its position in the free world. The status of being a colony of Britain, America was also influenced by the Elizabethan Poor Law of 1601. So, US Constitution adopted in 1787 was set on the objective of promotion of the general welfare and protect the interest of vulnerable sections of the society, hence requiring number of social workers. There was a Great Depression in 1930. This called for the Social Security Act in 1935. The poor relief was financed from the penalty of the citizens for crimes like refusal to work, cheating, not attending public worship. So, these were the crimes, and for this penalties were levied, and this became a source of money collection for the government. So, poor were considered persons with low morals. So, there was a lot of judgment being given to the poor. They used to judge the poor and stated that just because they are having low morals, that is why they are poor. So, their names were published in a list, and that was displayed, and a letter P was written on their sleeve. Idlers and beggars were sent to jail. In 1699, Massachusetts legislature set out that vagabonds, beggars and disorderly persons should be put in the house of correction. During final years of 18th and early years of 19th century, humanitarian movements grew for the abolition of slavery. Gradually increasing number of poor with increasing number of population demanded more food, and during crises like crop failure, even the able-bodied asked for poor relief. In 1823, Yates' report was published and recommended establishment of house of employment in each county, to procure a workhouse for sturdy beggars with enforced hard labor, to levy excise tax on whisky distilleries, to abolish order of removal and appeals to poor law litigation, no healthy male between 18 to 50 years be placed in pauper list, to punish street begging. The almshouses in the initially housed everyone together, but gradually their children and challenged persons were segregated, and over a period of time the services for them were also developed. Charity organization societies in 1877 in Buffalo, New York was established, and multiple such societies were established in many countries where friendly visitor would advise poor on money management and health and hygiene. The onus on individual for his situation seemed to be fading. Earlier there was a belief that a person is poor because he is idle, he is not living in hygienic conditions, he is work shirker. So, the onus of a person to become poor was put on the person itself. But when these friendly visitors started visiting, they learnt about the overall situation that was impacting and how hard the person was trying. He remained poor. So, this onus on individual was seen to be fading when some of the visitors got intimately involved and understood the larger picture, and they responded on multiple issues. It was realized by the friendly visitor that some training of the visitor is required, because they needed to understand the behavior of individual and social and economic problems, and how these different systems are impacting the individuals. So, they wanted to understand the interrelationship of the how economy operates, how politics operates, how society operates, and how it impacts the individual. So, the need for training was recognized by Anna Dewey of Pittsfield, Massachusetts in 1893, and Mary Richmond developed a plan for training school for applied philanthropy, which organized first social work courses in New York in 1897. Here again The NGO initiatives are there like YMCA and YWCA, the Settlement House Movement and Charity Organization Society, which started in UK, also played an important role in emergence of social work in USA. Chicago School of Social Economics in 1895 started offering lectures on the problems of working poor, while Columbia University started offering diploma and degree in social work. Currently, US has a Council of Social Work Education CSWE and National Association of Social Workers. Canada. Canada is the northern neighbor of United States, and Canada's system is considered being more humane than USA. Canada was formed in 1867. It took 7 decades to develop the welfare system in Canada. So let us have a look at some important landmarks. In 1935, the Unemployment Insurance Act was there. This provided for unemployment allowance as an entitlement. So if somebody is not getting employed, he used to or she used to get some kind of an allowance. In 1945, family allowances were introduced, which provided financial assistance to all mothers. In 1952, Old Age Security OAS, which provided financial assistance to all elderly who fulfilled residency conditions. In 1965 and 66, 3 key programs were initiated: the Canada Pension Plan CPP, the Canada Assistance Plan CAP and Medicare. In 1985, the Canadian Health Act provides for universal comprehensive health care. The CSWE was constituted united by US and Canada in 1919, and in 1926, Canadian Association of Social Work was started as a professional organization. Now let us have a look at how social work emerged in South America. The South American continent was colonized by Spain and Portugal. The culture, religion and customs are impacted by these European countries, whereas North America influences their political and social fabric also. So on one side, the South America was colonized by Spain and Portugal, but the North America was also having its influence in their political and social fabric. USA always had political and financial interest in South America, and due to history of feudal system, racism and discrimination are major social problems leading to many strong resistance movements. Important landmarks. In 1925, first South American School of Social Work started in Santiago de Chile. In 1930, first social work course started in Argentina. In 1978, Argentina Council on Social Service Education is created. South America engaged in exploring its own authentic potential in becoming free continent. It developed 2 schools of thought. One, functionalist, which stressed on the role of social workers in maintaining equilibrium by removing social problems. So it believed that if we keep on working on the social problems, gradually we will be able to maintain an equilibrium in the society. And then second school of thought was historical materialistic. This stressed upon the helping the poor overcome their oppression and marginalization, partly through Paulo Freire's notion of conscientization and awakening of the consciousness, which basically speaks about encouraging the poor to gather the strength to speak about and to address the oppression that they are facing. Thank you.